Sit back and listen to these 3 horrifying true school lockdown stories. Can you survive? Locked in fear. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon at Oak Ridge High School, a bustling hive of activity where students filled the halls with laughter and chatter. But as the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, an air of unease descended upon the campus. Rumors had been swirling for days about a potential threat, vague whispers that sent a ripple of fear through the student body. Teachers exchanged worried glances, and the principal's voice crackled over the intercom, urging everyone to remain calm as they initiated a precautionary lockdown procedure. Panic flickered in the eyes of the students as they filed into classrooms, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. Locks clicked shut, barricading them in a maze of cinder-block walls and flickering fluorescent lights. Hours passed, the minutes stretching into eternity, as fear gnawed at the edges of their sanity. Outside, the world seemed to hold its breath, the silence broken only by the distant wail of sirens. In the confines of room 213, Jenna huddled in the corner, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and desperation. Beside her, Sarah clutched her hand, her fingers trembling with fear. As darkness descended, shadows danced along the walls, casting sinister shapes that seemed to mock their vulnerability. The air grew thick with tension, every creak of the floorboards a harbinger of impending doom. Suddenly, the crackle of the intercom shattered the silence. A voice, strained with urgency, warning of an imminent threat within the school's walls. Panic surged through Jenna's veins, her breath catching in her throat as the reality of their situation sank in. Outside their classroom door, footsteps echoed in the hallway, a menacing rhythm that sent shivers down their spines. Jenna's pulse quickened, her mind racing with thoughts of escape, of survival against insurmountable odds. In the darkness they waited, a trembling chorus of whispers and prayers, rising like incense to the heavens. Time seemed to stand still as they braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation, their collective will the only shield against the encroaching darkness. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the footsteps faded into silence. Relief washed over them like a tidal wave, their breaths ragged with exhaustion and disbelief. Hours later, the lockdown was lifted and they emerged from their makeshift sanctuary, their eyes haunted by the specter of what could have been. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one truth remained. Within the confines of room 213, they had found the strength to endure, to survive in the face of unimaginable terror. Silent vigil. At Westdale High, lockdown drills were routine, a precaution against the unthinkable. But when the intercom crackled to life one crisp autumn morning, signaling an actual lockdown, a wave of fear rippled through the corridors. In Mrs. Johnson's English class, students exchanged nervous glances as she ushered them into the corner, her face a mask of calm, despite the unease churning in her stomach. Outside, the once bustling halls fell silent, punctuated only by the muffled shuffling of feet. As minutes stretched into an eternity, tension hung heavy in the air. The aroma of anxiety mingled with the scent of chalk and textbooks, a potent cocktail that filled the room. Suddenly, a dull thud reverberated through the walls, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, and eerily close. Mrs. Johnson's heart raced as she motioned for silence, her eyes wide with apprehension. The footsteps drew nearer, echoing like a death knell in the hushed confines of the classroom. Outside the door, shadows danced, casting twisted silhouettes on the frosted glass. A collective breath held as the handle rattled, the door straining against an unseen force. Mrs. Johnson's grip tightened on the makeshift barricade, her knuckles white with tension. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the footsteps receded, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Relief washed over the students, their faces pale with the realization of how fragile their safety truly was. Hours passed like a blur, the minutes ticking by like grains of sand in an hourglass. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the floor. As darkness enveloped the school, whispers of uncertainty filled the air. Thoughts of loved ones and unanswered questions hung heavy in the minds of students and teachers alike. Finally, the all-clear sounded, a symphony of relief that echoed through the halls. Mrs. Johnson's clasped hands trembled with emotion as she ushered her students into the light of freedom once more. But even as they emerged from their sanctuary, the memory of those harrowing hours lingered, a reminder of the fragility of life and the silent vigil they had kept in the face of unimaginable terror. When fear comes knocking. It was a crisp autumn morning at Maplewood High School, the sun casting long shadows across the campus. Inside, students bustled through the hallways, their laughter mingling with the sound of ringing bells. But as the first period began, a sense of unease settled over the school. The intercom crackled to life, the principal's voice stern and urgent as he announced a lockdown. A real one, not a drill. Panic rippled through the classrooms as teachers hurriedly locked doors and ushered students to safety. In Ms. Thompson's history class, fear hung heavy in the air as they huddled together, the windows barricaded with desks and chairs. Outside, the world seemed to hold its breath. The once bustling hallways fell silent, the only sound the pounding of hearts and the distant wail of sirens. Hours passed, each minute dragging by like an eternity. The air grew thick with tension, the darkness outside seeping into the classroom like an ominous fog. Then, a faint scratching sound echoed from the hallway, a sound so chilling it sent shivers down their spines. Miss Thompson's grip tightened on the phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed 911. The scratching grew louder, more insistent, like claws against metal. With each passing moment, fear tightened its grip on their hearts, threatening to suffocate them. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the scratching ceased. The hallway fell silent once more, the only sound the pounding of their own hearts. When the all-clear finally came, they emerged from their makeshift fortress, their faces pale with relief and exhaustion. But even as they stepped back into the light of day, the memory of that harrowing lockdown lingered, a reminder of the fragility of safety and the terror that lurked just beyond the walls of their school.